Have you ever really stopped to think about what's happening inside you right this second? It's so easy to just think of it as, a body. But what if it's way more than that? What if it's a sprawling, living metropolis? Well, let's take a tour of the most complex, most fascinating city on Earth, the City of You. Seriously, just picture it for a second. A perfectly automated, self-sustaining world that runs 24/7. It's got its own power plants, its own superhighways, a central government, and a population of trillions. This isn't some sci-fi movie. This is the biological reality we're about to dive into.
So, where do you even start with a city this massive? Well, every great city is built by its people, its citizens. So, to really understand this metropolis, we've got to meet its smallest, most fundamental inhabitant, the cell.
Our tour actually begins way back in 1665 with a scientist named Robert Hooke. He was looking through a pretty primitive microscope at a thin slice of cork, and he saw this honeycomb of tiny empty boxes. He called them cells, which is from the Latin word for small room. But here's the amazing part. He was basically looking at an abandoned city block. He could only see the empty walls left behind by dead plant cells. The very first person to see the city's living citizens wasn't even a professional scientist. Can you believe that? He was a Dutch cloth merchant, a guy named Antony van Leeuwenhoek. He built these incredibly powerful little microscopes, and one day he looked at a single drop of pond water and was just floored. He saw thousands of tiny creatures swimming around. For the first time ever, humanity was getting a peek at the bustling, living world of our city's citizens. Now, you can't just have trillions of citizens roaming around randomly, right? It would be chaos. No, they are incredibly organized. Think of it like this. Individual cells, the citizens, they group together to form tissues. Those are the city's neighborhoods. Then, different neighborhoods combine to create organs, which are like entire districts with special jobs. And finally, all these districts work together as huge, citywide systems, the infrastructure that keeps everything running smoothly. Okay, so how do you go from individual citizens to this massive functioning city? Well, you need infrastructure. You need a framework. So let's look at the huge structures that give this city its shape and the superhighways that connect it all. 206. What's that? That's the number of bones in an adult human skeleton. But this is not just some pile of bones. This is the high tensile steel framework of our entire city. It gives us our fundamental structure, it supports everything, and it acts like a protective shield for our most vital districts, like, say, the government headquarters in the skull or the main power pump in the chest. And this is where the city's design gets really, really clever. You've got bone, which provides that rigid, unbending strength, kind of like steel girders. But then you have cartilage, and that acts as the flexible cushioning, the shock absorbers in our joints that make sure all this rigid framing can move smoothly without grinding itself to dust. It's just brilliant. Every city needs a transport network, right? And at the center of ours is an absolutely incredible engine. The heart is what's known as a myogenic pump. Now, what that means is that it actually generates its own electrical impulse to beat. Yeah. The city's government, the brain, can send a memo telling it to speed up or slow down, but the initial command to beat, that comes from the heart itself. It's a self-starting engine running day and night. And what's this incredible pump pushing through the highways? The city's massive delivery fleet. Blood. The red blood cells, those are your millions of oxygen trucks, rushing fuel to every single citizen. The white blood cells, that's your mobile security force, constantly on patrol hunting for invaders. And the platelets? They're the emergency repair crew, ready to instantly patch any leak in the highway walls. And all of it flows on the plasma, the liquid highway itself. Okay, a city this busy with this much going on needs a tremendous amount of energy. So our tour is now taking us to the massive power plants and processing facilities that fuel all this nonstop activity. It's really easy to mix up breathing and respiration, but they are totally different things. Breathing is just the mechanical part, the big pump that physically pulls air into the city. Respiration, now that's where the real magic happens. That's the chemical factory inside every single cell that uses the oxygen to burn food and generate the city's universal power source, these tiny rechargeable energy packets called ATP. So where does the city's air supply meet the delivery trucks of the bloodstream? It happens in these tiny, tiny little air sacs in your lungs called alveoli. And you have around 400 million of them. And get this, if you could flatten them all out, they'd cover an entire tennis court. That is an incredible amount of surface area, all designed to make that vital gas exchange as efficient as possible. Of course, oxygen is pretty useless without fuel to burn, and that's where this incredible facility comes in. The digestive system is basically a 32-foot-long disassembly line. It's designed to take raw materials, like a burger and fries, and break them down into molecules small enough for the blood to pick up and deliver all over the city. Now, inside this pipeline, there's one chamber with some seriously powerful chemistry going on. The acid in your stomach is actually strong enough to dissolve metal, which leads to a pretty big question, doesn't it? Why on earth doesn't it just dissolve the stomach itself? And the answer is just a beautiful piece of biological engineering. The stomach walls are protected by this thick layer of mucus that's constantly being replenished. It's like a biological force field that keeps that corrosive acid safely contained, so it only breaks down the food we eat and not the machinery doing the work. After the stomach, the real absorption of all those nutrients begins in the small intestine. And here's its secret weapon, the key to its incredible efficiency. See, the walls aren't smooth. They're covered in millions of these tiny finger-like projections called villi. And this one simple design trick increases the surface area for grabbing nutrients by about 600 times. It's an amazing design. Okay, we've seen the citizens, the framework, the transport, and the power plants. But what coordinates everything? Who's running the show? For our final stop, we're heading to the city's central command, its government, and its lightning-fast internet, the nervous system. The basic unit of this whole network is the neuron. You can just think of it as a living biological wire. Billions of these neurons connect to form this incredible network that's basically a government and an internet all rolled into one. It processes information, makes decisions up in the brain, and zaps electrical commands to every single corner of the city in a fraction of a second. And that really concludes our main tour of the City of You. It's this complex, interconnected metropolis where trillions of cells, tissues, organs, and systems all work together in perfect harmony to create you. But you know what? The story doesn't quite end there. Because for every single one of your own cells, there's at least one other microscopic organism living in and on you. This is your microbiome. We're talking trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that aren't invaders. They're residents. They help you digest your food. They support your immune system. Some can even influence your mood. So as we end this, just think about this. Are you just the city, or are you the entire planet that city is built on?